Tell the pain. Tell the nation what's going on. Let them see what's going on. Underneath all the beautiful skies and all, what the truth is. Because only the truth sets us free. Kim?
Hello, I'm Kim Porter. I'm the environmental co-chair along with William Barber III for the Poor People's Campaign, and I work for NC Warren. I first got involved with this community in around 2010 with frack-free Stokes when I lived in Winston-Salem, but I understood the problems of fracking and the fact that North Carolina was looking at fracking here in our state, and that affects all of us. What we saw then was the fight against coal ash, with residents against coal ash. And I got involved again in 2011, 2012, and saw the need with others for folks from frack-free Stokes, which were predominantly white folks, and folks from Residents Against Coal Ash, who were predominantly African American. And we needed to come together, and we did that. This community has fought against fracking and done a moratorium against fracking. This community has fought with Walnut Tree for annexation. This community has fought hard against coal ash, February 2014 with the Dan River spill. And this community has fought hard to get those politicians out who were not in favor of the people. And that's what the testimonies here today are to tell you about, us fighting together, working together, forward together.
All right. Miss Alfred Warren.
2 minutes. Thank you to all the advocates. Words can't express how much it always meant to have you all as servants of love. We need to make sure that no community is left to suffer the coal ash contamination. All the people, regardless of race, creed, or social economic class, we have the right to a healthy community, clean air, and clean water.
Yes, sir.
We know that living in a close proximity to coal ash impoundment infringe upon the basic civil rights of all. We need more transparency in the process of the coal ash cleanup. Press our decision makers to make sure that they are open and honest about the health effects of coal ash contamination. Whenever decisions regarding coal ash cleanup are made, it's time for community leaders, members, and experts to invite by the community to have input. Ask Duke Energy take full responsibility to be held accountable for past, present, and future contributions that they have made to coal ash, the tragic situation and contamination of neighborhood drinking water. My name is Alfred Warren. I've lived here all of my life for 63 years. I live within the community. I know directly how it affects the health of our whole entire community. I speak on behalf of all the ones that have lost their lives and went on before us.
That's right.
God have brought this unity together. That's what we need. This is not a black thing. This is not a white thing. This is not an economical thing. It's a God thing. In love, in unity, we can come together and make a change and make a difference to clean it up.
Clean it up. Clean it up.
Clean it up.
Clean it up.
Clean it up. Clean it up.
Clean it up. Brother David Harrison. Clean it up.
Thank you. My name is David Harrison. I'm on the board of Appalachian Voice, president of the Walnut Tree Community Association, and an advocate for coal ash cleanup.
That's right.
I'm the person that the community calls. When young people are calling me to just have kids that are afraid to bathe their kids in their well water. I'm the ones that older people are calling me that don't fix income, that they have took their bottle of water away from them, that they're telling me they're scared to let their grandchildren come to their house because they'll go outside and play in the yard and be sick. I'm the person that they call and ask me, what are we gonna do about that? I'm the person that they call when they say, I'll try to sell my home and I can't get a dime for it. I'm the person that they call and have no answer for them.
All right.
And that answer is going to stop because I'm in this fight till it's done.
Yes.
Last year, in 2016, Duke Energy's profit was $2 billion. In 2017, their profit was $3 billion. And they're going to tell us they can't afford to clean up the mess that they made in our backyard. I left home today. they were running a commercial. They're a good neighbor. How many of you neighbors drop trash in your backyard and ask you to pay to clean it up? If you are not affected by coal ash and you are on Duke Energy, you're paying for coal ash cleanup anyway. They should pay for the cleanup that they made billions of dollars off of, making us sick for 40 years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Leslie Brewer.
And
My name
children.
And children.
3
And
of
her
my
son's going
5.
to speak as well.
And
Oh,
children.
okay.
Come on around, baby.
Come around this way, darling.
The future.
You all can see in the media, we don't have to orchestrate anything. This is real.
Yes.
You know, when you're on Johnny Carr, used to be on Johnny Carr, they have the applause sign. We don't have to do that.
That's right.
Because this is real.
That's right.
It's about tears and pain.
That's right. He just said, this is real. This is very real for me and my family. I have 5 children. 3 are here today. 2 are adults working elsewhere. My name is Leslie Bray Brewer. I'm a former high school English teacher. I'm a former editor of this county's newspaper. But before I was all of that, I grew up within the shadow of that steam station. I was so close I could hear the workers talking on the loudspeaker as I played in my yard. Nobody told us not to eat the fish from the lake. Nobody told me my air was polluted. I noticed the sky was a little different color, but nobody told me the problems. Nobody told us that our vegetables in the ground were imbibing the coal ash. We knew every morning when we got up, we had to go wipe off our cars before we could drive them because there was such a thick layer of coal ash on our vehicles. And then I grew up and I escaped. I said, I got to get out of here. My grandparents were poor sharecroppers. I'm white, but we were poor people, sharecroppers, who saved enough money to buy a farm we thought in a wonderful place. But guess what? It was a place where land was cheap because minorities and poorer white people lived here. So big companies knew they could come here and take advantage of people like us. So my grandparents ended up dying of lung diseases, emphysema, neurological issues way too soon. When I came back and bought my childhood home, I escaped for 13 years but came back, I raised 4 of my 5 children in the shadow of that steam station as I was. And from the first, they experienced severe breathing difficulties, many trips to the hospitals at night to the emergency room. My children had such strange issues that when snowflakes would fall through the air, which you know coal ash was there, whether we could see it or not, when the snowflakes fell and touched my daughter's skin, she'd break out in huge hives just from a snowflake in the sky coming down. So what did I do? I moved away. When this child, my 5th child, shortly after he was born, I moved about 20 minutes away where the air was cleaner. We could drink the water better. And you know what? This is the only one of my children who never had breathing issues, who never had to be rushed to the emergency room to breathe, who had none of those problems. My health improved. In the year 2000, when I still lived here, I was bedridden. I had to go in a wheelchair sometimes when I could get out of bed at all. Strange neurological issues that would make me tick and jerk and not even sleep at night. And no doctor, I went to the doctors, nobody could diagnose it. But my neighbors were having the same problems, mysterious sores, breathing issues, neurological issues. So I knew I wasn't alone. One of us went to a doctor in Greensboro who said, oh, you live over near Cancer Lake, don't you? That's what they told us. But once I moved away and we all moved away, our health improved. I'm here today out of a wheelchair. My health improved. Now, if I carry bitterness, that's going to kill me quicker than all this other stuff. However, I urge Duke Energy, clean this up properly. Don't charge us to clean it up because it is never, ever wrong to do the right thing.
Amen. Amen.
There's a thing we say when applause doesn't really fit, even though I know we're applauding her, is shame.
Shame.
The most hurtful thing I just heard her say was when I moved away, my health got better. That's more a place for tears than it is for applause.
Yes, it is.
When I moved away from my home, that's when I got well. Because in my home, people did that for greed that made me sick. You all hear the sadness? Every child but that one. Because she moved away. How many of y'all tired of having to move away? It's time to clean this place. Catherine Flowers and Karina Gore are coming up together.
Hi, my name is Catherine Coleman Flowers. I'm from Lowndes County, Alabama. I live in Montgomery, Alabama, and I work for the Equal Justice Initiative and the Center for Earth Ethics. I'm here because I'm an advocate for environmental justice, and I wanted to stand here with people from Belews Creek and throughout this area that are suffering because of coal ash. Because environmental injustices are happening around the nation. It is not just happening here in North Carolina.
right.
It's happening in Alabama. It's happening in West Virginia. It's happening in Kentucky. It was happening in Standing Rock. It's happening in California. Places where marginalized communities are becoming the dumps for these corporations that are making billions and billions of dollars of polluting Mother Earth. And I'm here to say that we have to plan not only for the generations that are here, but the 7 generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Corinna Gore. I'm really happy to be back here. Really thank you for the welcome. Honored to be with so many people who have fought so hard for their community. I was here several years ago, and I was able to learn from what was being brought to light by people who live right here in this community about the dumping of coal ash. And I remember sitting and I want to thank actually my colleagues at Union Seminary, Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris, who's now the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign with Reverend Barber. She introduced me to this work, and it was Jackie Patterson that invited me to come down here with her on that day. I sat with Alfred Warren, and he showed me photographs of his loved ones who had passed away from illnesses. He told me, as did other people, that they had been told that cancer runs in their families, not that they could make the connection to living near this toxic site. Now, between the time that I was visiting here 2 years ago and today, there have been several things that have happened. One is that we now have an administration where the head of the EPA is a former lobbyist for the coal industry who has, just as his first act, tried to relax the rules for the disposal of coal ash. It's unjust and it's wrong. There are people in office and in power who say that the government, our democracy in the United States of America, should be run more like a business. And there are good businesses and good business people, but there are also businesses for whom they treat everything as an externality. We've heard that word, the air, the water, the people who are struggling in poverty as an externality. And what we have now is a government that doesn't want to count the real costs. So the real costs of this coal ash, the real costs of coal, not only to the people who are here on the front lines, but to the entire planet. Projects like this around the whole earth are in aggregate destroying the living ecosystem of the planet we all share. So thank you to these brave people for standing up and being that voice to bring us back to sanity, to bring us back to justice and balance. Thank you for being here, and forward together.
Not one step. This young man said he had a word. He's one of the children, right? And so they say we should be there. I know he's a big man. How old are you? 22. When I looked at him and he said children. But I got a daughter 10 years older than you, so I can call you children. All right. But come on and speak, my brother.
My name is Elijah Evans. I'm the son of the former speaker that talked about her children having health problems growing up under the shadow of the steam station. And I'm here to speak for the future generation. I grew up here my entire life. I love this community. I love these people. I get emotional just thinking about all these people. No, it doesn't matter political party or color of skin. They're all coming together because they know that this is an important issue that's affecting everyone. No matter, it does not pick a gender, a skin color, a political party. It's affecting all of us, and something needs to be done. I want to raise my children here, but currently I do not feel comfortable that one day I could have children and raise them under the shadow of this with the risk of the health issues that are going to be that they could inquire here. I don't feel comfortable doing that, but I want to stay here and I want to fight to make sure there is a difference and there is a change so that there can be a rich new generation, because that's the thing. People are dying out, and where's everyone going to go? They're all going to leave, and then we're going to be left. This land is going to be left barren. Something needs to be done. If I've experienced anything in my 22 years, it's that if there's a dollar to be made today, oftentimes it's going to be at the expense of a future generation, and that is not right. It is wrong. We cannot just think about ourselves here today. We have to to think about the next generation and the generation after that. I think that something needs to be done. The way that they are handling this coal ash needs to be changed. There needs to be more power put into research for solar energy and alternative sources of energy, because this is not sustainable. The way that things are going are not going to be able to last, and this community has been literally dying. I have seen great grandparents, I have seen great uncles and aunts all die before their time. People that are part of my life that have passed away, and I've seen sick children. I mean, we are an example of just us kids of what it was like. I had severe respiratory issues growing up my entire life, and again, once I moved away, I had no problems and I recovered 100%. I want to come back to this community to make a difference, and I want to raise a family here one day, but to do that, a difference needs to be made, and I think we can do that.
Good job. Clean it up. Shame, clean it up.
I want to ask Anna Blackburn and Joyce Johnson to come stand beside me, and my other where's the sister? Reverend LeVay, would you come? I was going to make a few quick comments and bring on our brother, and I've been saying that our brother, Al Gore, and I want to make sure, I always check around to make sure the audience is real diverse. Because in the South, I'm tired of people splitting us. And I know that if we make issues moral issues and not red or blue or right or left, but moral issues, we can hold together in the moral center.
Yeah, that's right.
Amen.
There are 140 million poor people and low-income people in this country today.
Shame.
This is not 39 million poor, 140 million. The majority of them are women, children, the disabled. The majority of them in raw numbers are white. The majority percentage of race are black and Latino. 140 million. There are 14 million poor children in this country today.
Shame.
There are 13 million households today that cannot afford water.
Yeah, shame.
And the poor are the brunt of climate change effects.
Yes.
Shame.
There are 4 million families in the country today that cannot afford and cannot get, they can buy unleaded gas and can't buy unleaded water.
Shame.
They go right down the street and buy unleaded gas, but they can't purchase unleaded water because the water has been poisoned by corporate greed.
Shame.
And all of these places where you have these coal ash spills and other environmental injustices are in what we used to call was that least undesirable land use, LULUs. LULUs, that's the term they came up with. It means the places where they count on the poor people not either having the power to fight back or that they can go in and fool black and white people to be against each other on other issues so that they won't come together and change the politics of their area. In North Carolina, there are 1 million people uninsured.
Shame.
And yet your legislators, and I'm going to ask you who they are in a minute, from this county, have refused to support expanding health care. We're in a state where we have denied expanding health care over 500,000 people, 30,000 veterans. I want you to understand there's some politicians, and it's not about party, but they have some mean politics.
That's right.
Shame.
I don't care how nice they do it within the rules of Robert's order.
That's right.
When they finish at the end of the day, it's just mean.
Mean.
32% of all the census tracts in North Carolina are at risk for being unable to afford water. 43,000, almost 44,000 tons of toxins or carbons are annually emitted in North Carolina. 43,000 tons. Now, we've said some things about Duke Power. I want to go a little bit deeper.
Go deeper.
because Duke Power can't do any more than the politicians allow.
That's right.
Speak the truth.
Now I want to ask a question. I'm going to act as though I don't know it and bring up. And this is not about a partisan endorsement, it's about a principled endorsement. It's about raising moral issues, because I believe if folk ever know the moral issues, they'll know who to vote for. You don't have to tell them.
That's right.
Who is one of your state senators from up this way? I mean, United States senators. Who? Y'all know who you? Richard who? No, the one from up this way, Winston-Salem.
Oh, Burr.
Richard Burr. Has Richard Burr come down here?
Oh, Lord, no.
I'm just asking, because some people might have voted for him because, you know, he's against, you know, voting rights, and you know, he says he's a Christian, and I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying, and he says no, he don't have to do it. He passes these laws about Latino people. But I want to know, has the U.S. senator in this area who claims that he wins in Stokes County, has he been here to fix the problem of coal ash?
No.
All right, I'm just saying. Has the other senator been here? Tell us.
No.
Does the state senator live anywhere in this area, like near Eden? What's his name? Phil Berger. I'm asking y'all, do y'all know who's your state senator? Has he passed any? He's the leader of the Senate. Have they passed any legislation to clean up what's going on and to stop what's going on and to put some regulations on Duke Power?
No, he's a politician.
Okay, just give me a yes or no. That's all. Because how about the guy that's the House Speaker, Tim Moore?
No.
Have they been down here?
No.
So this is my point, brothers and sisters. You all know who the problems are.
That's right.
Now they do good at splitting people. You know, when they want to run for office, they say, you elect me, I'll protect the elections because we got election fraud. And they lie and tell people they're gonna have voter protection when it's nothing but voter suppression. And they make you think that's against black people but in fact, those same people that vote to suppress the vote to give Duke Power unrestricted power.
That's right.
The same people that have denied health care and told us that it was Obamacare, not the Affordable Care Act.
That's right.
And made us think that it was just, you know, some black and brown people that were being lazy. That were, no. Hundreds of people in this county would be getting health care if we hadn't denied it.
That's
And the same people.
Yes.
I want us to hear that. When they come in this community and tell you, I'm not for same-sex marriage, vote for me. And people get all hyped up about something that Jesus didn't even make an issue.
That's right.
And then people vote for them for that issue. Well, the same people that attack the LGBT community are allowing your water to be poisoned.
That's right. Teach. Come on.
And in the moral constructs of Jesus, to hurt the stranger, to not give people clean water when they're thirsty is the real sin.
That's right. That's right.
That's the real sin. And so I'm asking you all to do a deep dive. I'm asking you to call the people in. Now they're gonna give you some rhetoric. Oh, we'll fix it next time. Somebody said you've been around here 40 years.
That's right.
I want to suggest some of you all might need to run. I'm just saying.
That's right.
But the point is, we have to hold the politicians accountable and members of the media. You're gonna have to hold them accountable.
Right.
You're gonna have to go to them and say, show me the legislation that you passed to protect the people of this area. And when they tell you, well, we couldn't get the votes, well, if you can get the votes to suppress the vote,
That's right.
you can get the vote to change our Constitution. If you can get the vote against gay people, if you can get the vote against health care, if you can get the vote to cut money for public education, if you can get the vote to cut taxes for the wealthy and make the poor and the working poor have to pay more, then you can get the votes to protect our environment and protect our water. It's a matter of will and it's a matter of moral direction.
Moral direction.
Problem is here is that we have a situation where we are no longer pushing our politicians on moral issues, and they skate through on partisanism.
Yes.
And so this election, hold folk accountable.
Yes.
Next election, hold folk accountable.
That's right.
If your senator won't clean up the coal ash, go get bottles of water with it in it and take it to their office in Raleigh.
All right.
like the farmers did down east one time when they took the sewage. But we know we can fix this. Tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, they could have a special session and pass the legislation to make Duke Energy have to clean this up on their own money and not charge you anymore. Tomorrow, not 2 months from now, they could have a session to halt pipelines. Tomorrow, they could decide that North Carolina is going to focus on solar energy and renewable energy. It is immediately within the possibility of chance and change. But it's only going to happen if you decide you will no longer split us, especially in the South. I personally, as a son of the South, and as I bring on another son of the South, who is a former vice president, but a tremendous and leading voice in this area, I'm about sick of people dumping on poor folk in the South. I'm about sick of people using race to split black and white people when they end up passing policies that hurt us all. Denying living wages hurts us all. Denying health care hurts us all. Immigrants hurting other immigrants hurts us all, and poisoning our water hurts us all. Well, it's time for us to say, North Carolina, we are drinking from a new well. We are drinking from the well of justice, the well of love, the well of mercy, and that new water is like living water, and it's bubbling up in our spirits, and it's even got a hold of our brother Al Gore from Tennessee. God bless you. Welcome to former Vice President.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Thank you, Reverend Barber, and it's an honor for me to be here, and it's a joy to be here with my daughter, Corinna, my friend Catherine Flowers from Alabama, and it's been so enlightening to me to hear from the local residents and those who have suffered the consequences of being exposed over the long term to this coal ash, and it's tragic when we hear about the health consequences, but it's inspiring when we feel their determination to solve this and to demand that this problem be solved. You know, Frederick Douglass once wrote that power never concedes anything without a demand. What you're hearing today is a demand from this community. I've spent most of my life since I left the White House involuntarily and fighting for solutions to the climate crisis. And there are solutions, but I want to draw connections between Belews Lake and the coal ash pollution and the gaseous pollution that is threatening to make of our entire planet the kind of mess that they've made here. We had to stop on the way over here or actually we didn't stop, but we saw going beside us all these train cars full of coal. On a peak day, this plant over here burns 220 rail cars full of coal. And what is left over when they burn it is this toxic coal ash. Now, if you had all these millions of tons of a toxic substance, and you just dug a raw gash in the ground and dumped it in there, you would be behaving recklessly.
That's right.
That's what they're doing.
That's right.
This is a crime scene. They ought to call this event CSI Belews Lake. This is a crime scene investigation. Now, where'd those train cars full of coal come from? They came from the north and slightly northwest. Corinna was talking about the big coal baron that has one of the least responsible coal mining operations up there in West Virginia. And he hired a lobbyist and went to the new administration right after this new administration was put in place. And he gave a letter to the new president. And the number one demand on the polluters' part on that list was to loosen up the restrictions and regulations on dumping coal ash.
That's right.
That lobbyist who went in with him to see one of the cabinet members just became the new head of the Environmental Protection Agency. And the very first act he took as head of the EPA was to follow through on the demand of his former employer just months earlier to loosen up the regulations on the treatment and disposal of coal ash. You can look it up. It's right there in the record. What do they want to loosen up? Well, they don't want the same monitoring of whether or not it's going into the drinking water.
That's right.
And these health consequences that we have heard about from those who have lived in the shadow of this Duke Energy coal plant, they come from, the doctors believe, the exposure to these toxic chemicals. Sometimes it's difficult to connect all the dots, but when so many people in the same area suffer the same consequences, it's fair to say, well, we believe we know here at CSI Belews Lake what the villain is. Now I want to make another connection for you. When they burn all that coal and produce the coal ash, they have another waste stream, and you can see it right there. Going out the stacks.
Yes, sir.
On an annual basis, there's 110 million tons of coal ash produced in this country every single year. On a daily basis, there's 110 million tons of man-made heat-trapping global warming pollution put into the atmosphere every single day, as if the atmosphere is an open sewer for them to use free of charge so they do not have to take responsibility for the pollution they're causing. Now, what are the consequences here at CSI Belews Lake of all that pollution going into the air? Well, every night on the television news is like a nature hike through the book of Revelations these days. Have you seen the fires in California?
Yes.
The biggest ever, and throughout many regions of the American West, and in places like Sweden, north of the Arctic Circle, and in Mongolia, and in Greece, and in Africa. I go Australia. They've got one of the worst droughts they've ever had because we're trapping all this extra heat that global warming pollution traps in the atmosphere, and it raises the temperature to record high levels. Some of the places in the world that are already hot are getting so hot people feel like they can't live there anymore, and some of them are becoming climate refugees, and they're shaking the political system in Europe, and they're creating problems in many places. It's heating up the oceans, and when you boil the oceans, the steam goes into the air. The boiling is an exaggeration. Let me back up here. When you heat up the oceans too much, the amount of water vapor that goes into the sky increases dramatically. And when it comes over the land, that's what causes what the scientists are calling rain bombs, where you get these unprecedented downpours. Hadn't been too long ago, there was a 500-year flood near here. We have these record downpours all over the world. Last summer in Houston, Texas, they got 5 feet of rain, causing an utter disaster. The ice is melting. The sea level is rising. We're seeing the hurricanes get stronger. Now, all of this is connected to the same system that's producing that global warming pollution and the coal ash that is causing the health problems in this community. We have to change the system. We have to make new decisions about who is going to write the policy and pass the laws. How many people here are registered to vote?
Yes.
Between now and the election, less than 90 days from now, and between now and the election, 2 years and 90 days from now, if you can register more people to vote and take the advice of Rev.William Barber and do not let the polluters and those who are thriving on injustice divide us along the color line, along the poverty line, along the other lines they try to draw to keep people apart. If we come together around a moral center, this is a Moral Monday, and the Moral Mondays movement which has been started inspiringly by Reverend Barber, has now inspired other church communities and other groups of people all across this country to launch their own Moral Mondays. Now that ecological devastation has been placed along with racism and poverty and militarism at the heart of the cause that Moral Mondays is addressing and that the Poor People's Campaign is addressing, I believe we're going to see this concern for changing this system also spread around this country. I'm inspired by the local citizens who have become activists to protect their families and communities. Thank you for what you're doing. Forward together.
Not one step backward. So to the members here and the people, the media, get this message out. Thank you very much. And the last thing I want to just say before Anna and Joyce have any last comments is our voice. We got to raise our voices, not only out here with the smokestacks behind us. The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival, says when you look at systemic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, the war economy, militarism, because the greatest polluter is the war pollution imprint, which is a whole nother issue, and the immoral religious nationalism agenda that says all God cares about, God doesn't really care about the environment, God doesn't really care about health care for everybody. All God cares about is being against gay people, against abortion, for prayer in the school, for guns, and for tax cuts. Well, I'm like most of you all from down south. I'm old church boy. Me too. That ain't what I read in the Bible. The political agenda of Jesus that I read was good news to the poor, recovery of sight to the blind, healing to the brokenhearted. And there's some brokenhearted people around here. There's some sick people around here.
Be good.
Jesus said how a nation cares for the sick, the stranger, the thirsty, and the poor is the judgment of that nation or that state. So we ought to raise our voices, but I want to suggest one thing. You know, in the Poor People's Campaign and in the Moral Monday, you can't just raise it out here. It might be that all of the folk around this lake need to take a trip to Raleigh and sit down in the state legislature and refuse to leave.
That's right.
Because see, what they do is they come back home and tell y'all one thing, but in Raleigh, Berg and those others do something else.
That's right.
Maybe we need to get a bus together and go to Virginia Fox's office.
Maybe.
And don't leave until you have not just a promise, because you know they'll lie to get you to get up.
That's right.
Maybe if people are gonna be made sick, we're gonna make them take us to jail non-violently and stay in there. If you are serious about people living, you have to fight for life.
That's right.
You had to fight to be born. You didn't just pop out.
That's right.
You have to fight to stay in. How many of you, all the older you get, you got to fight to get up in the morning? And if you're going to protect your community from those who poison it, yes, love must be love with justice.
That's right.
Love must be with the commitment to faith with works, because faith without works is dead. The people in power and money are not moved just by asking them nicely.
That's right.
But we also are not violent. We will, if you're gonna hurt our bodies anyway, then we'll put our bodies on the line.
That's right.
Years ago, up in Warren County, when they were being poisoned, 500 people laid down in front of the trucks.
Yes, sir.
There might be a need to stop some of the activity going over there with some children and grandma. I don't know. You'll have to make these decisions, but know we stand with you.
That's right.
And then you've got to vote, but you can no longer go in and just pull a lever based on a party or a personality or somebody that says they're from up here. And they can't just promise you for 10 or 15 years they haven't done anything, but now that you're all organized and all of a sudden they're going to promise you what you're going to do. That's probably a lie. It's probably a lie. So you're going to have to vote strategically and focused and not allow people to turn you apart from one another.
Amen.
And then as Vice President Gore says, we have to connect from Alaska to Alabama, from Washington to here, from Seattle to Stokes County. This battle is raging.
Yes, it is.
And I'm glad about it.
Me too.
Because if the battle is raging, then that means the victory will come. The only fights we've ever lost against injustice are the ones we chose not to fight.
That's right.
And so I'm glad that you all are in the fight, and we're in the fight together. But we may have to up our ante.
That's right.
We may have to up our ante. And I want to say this, I need 2 elderly women, one black and one white. I'm gonna show you something. Come on, elderly. I got a lot of nerve to say that. I want you to, you gotta own it this morning. Come on. I need an elderly black woman, a mother, one of them mothers of the church. We got one out here? From this area. Come on, get an elder.
There's nobody going to admit they're old.
Well, they got to for this one.
That sister was singing on our band.
Come on, where's the sister? That's right. Now look, I want to show y'all something very serious. I want to show y'all something very serious. Now I need 2 of the youngest people to come up here. All right. I mean, a little young. You got another young kid?
Stand in front of that lady in the green. Or beside her.
All right. Now watch this. Listen, shh. Here's my point. If you all build
Right in the middle.
a civil disobedience campaign, and it looks like this, with elderly black women, elderly white women, and children, and preachers holding cans, holding hands, and standing someplace, and if they mess around and, I'm sorry to say, arrest her, and arrest her.
They done got trouble.
You heard that right. You heard that right. And that's what you have to do. A person told me yesterday, and I want to close with this. She was a professor of political memory. She said, whenever there is injustice, you might use this somewhere. Whenever there's injustice,
I'm taking notes all day.
Whenever there's injustice, you have to have somebody that's willing to create enough turbulence around the injustice that will cause people to question the direction we're going in.
See, Greg, that's what I do.
That's right. The other day, I was on the plane, and the autopilot was set. But then turbulence came up. And when the turbulence came up, it forced the pilot to question the direction in which we were traveling. If we can create enough justice turbulence, and enough love turbulence, and enough mercy turbulence, and enough truth turbulence, we can cause the politicians of North Carolina and the business leaders of North Carolina to question the direction that we're going. I'm authorizing you today, not in Barber's name, but in the name of the Holy Ghost, to create some turbulence up here in this county, in Raleigh, in Washington, D.C., until we make people question the direction that we're heading in as a nation. God bless you.
Go vote, get people registered, make sure they go vote.
Yes, sir.
Check with the elderly. They may need absentee ballots.
Yes.
Oh, man, yes, we need it all, and I've been preaching that, y'all.
Joyce and Anna.
All right. So you've already heard. You've heard the truths from the people of Stokes County. You've heard the truths from our Dr. Barber. You've heard the truths from Vice President Gore. So now let our feet move, and we keep praying and moving forward.